Hi friends, Caitlin here with Sass and Stitch Crochet, and today I'll be walking you through a tutorial for the Coco Coaster, which uses the zigzag spike puff stitch. This has become quickly one of my favorite stitches because of the amazing texture and stitch definition. For this pattern, you will need DK weight yarn and a 4mm crochet hook. For this tutorial, I'm going to be using Cotton, which is from We Crochet. You can find the affiliate link in my bio. Here I've included gauge swatch information. It's not 100% necessary to test gauge, but if you'd like to be accurate with your sizing, you can go ahead and give it a shot. By the end of the pattern, we are aiming to have a 5-inch square. So let's go ahead and get started. So we'll be starting with a slip knot. Insert your hook into your loop. And for this pattern, we'll be making 18 chains. Alternatively, if you'd like another size, you can chain any even number. So yarn over and pull through the loop on your hook. That's 1 chain. Yarn over and pull through the loop on your hook. That's 2. 1, 2, 3. Keep going until you have a total of 18 chains. Alright, I've got my 18 chains here. And for row 1, we're just going to be working single crochet starting in the second chain from the hook in each chain across. So locate that second chain, and instead of working on the front, you want to flip it over and find this back hump here. Insert your hook into the second back hump from the hook. Yarn over and pull through 1. Yarn over and pull through 2. That is a single crochet. Moving on to the next chain. Insert, yarn over and pull through 1. Yarn over and pull through 2. That's another single crochet. You're going to keep doing a single crochet into each chain across. Keep on working and I'll meet you back at the end of the row. Okay, I'm just going to work my last one here, and by the end of the row you should have 17 single crochet, which is 1 less than your starting chain. Chain 1 and turn at the end of the row, and now we'll be starting row 2. Working into the top of the first stitch, we're going to be doing a single crochet. Now chain 1. Now we'll be starting our puff stitches, so working into the next stitch here, we're going to start by yarning over, insert into that next stitch, yarn over and pull through the stitch. Now you don't want to keep it too tight, you want to lift up on your hook just a little bit. Yarn over again, insert into the same stitch again, yarn over and pull through the stitch. Lift up just a little. You should have 5 loops on your hook currently. Yarn over, insert into the same stitch again, yarn over and pull through the stitch. Now you should have 7 loops on your hook. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Now you want to yarn over and pull that loop through all 7 loops on your hook. Chain 1 at the end. Now we're going to skip the next stitch. So skip this next one and you want to work into the one after that. We're going to do another puff stitch. So yarn over, insert into the stitch, yarn over and pull through 1. Remember to lift up just slightly, yarn over, insert, yarn over and pull through 1. Yarn over, insert, yarn over and pull through 1. Again, you should have 7 loops on your hook. Yarn over and pull through all those 7 loops. chain 1. We're going to be repeating this all the way across, so you'll be skipping a stitch and puffing into the next one. I'll walk you through a puff one more time. This stitch here, yarn over, insert, yarn over and pull through 1. We do this action 3 times, so that's the first one. Yarn over, insert, yarn over and pull through 1. That's the second time. Yarn over, insert, yarn over and pull through 1. That's the third time. And then at the end, you should have 7 loops. And you will yarn over and pull through all 7 loops. Chain 1 and skip the next stitch. Continue working this repetition of puff, chain 1, and skip the next stitch all the way across, and I'll meet you back when we have 1 stitch remaining. Okay, I've worked my way to the end with 1 stitch left. I've just worked a puff stitch. We're going to chain 1 after like we have been, and we're just going to work a single crochet into this last stitch here. Okay, chain 1 and turn your work, and now we'll be starting row 3. In the first stitch, we will do a single crochet, and chain 1. Now we're going to be doing puff stitches into the skipped stitches from row 1. So every other stitch was skipped in the last row of puffs. Now we're going to be working into those skip stitches. So you see we have no skip stitch here between the first stitch and the first puff. So we're going to reach all the way over, yarn over, reach all the way over into the first skipped stitch and work a puff. The puffs are the same as the first row. So you do that same repetition, and this time you really want to pull up on your loops so it reaches the same height as the current row. Pull up after every time you pull through a loop. Work your puff stitch and chain 1. Then you'll be working into the next skipped stitch. So yarn over, insert, yarn over and pull through and lift up on your work, yarn over, insert, yarn over, pull through and up, yarn over, insert, yarn over, pull through and up on your work, yarn over and pull through all 7 loops. Chain 1. And continue working puff stitches into each skipped stitch and chaining 1 at the end. I'll meet you back at the end of the row. Okay, I've worked all the way across. I've done my last skip stitch, and you see there's no more skip stitch between the puff here and the single crochet at the end. So we'll simply chain 1 after this last puff, and we're going to stretch across and single crochet into the last stitch here. You might notice by now, but we'll always start and end with a single crochet. Okay, chain 1 and turn your work. Now we'll be starting row 4. These instructions will be what you'll follow for the rest of the stitch pattern. So now we'll be working puffs 2 rows below. So this is 1 row below, this is 2 rows below. And you see here how there's a little hole right before each puff. From now on, this is where you're going to be working into for all future puffs, into the little hole right before each puff. So start the row with a single crochet like always and a chain 1. Now look 2 rows down to do your puff stitch. So 1, 2. You'll find that gap. That's where you're going to insert your hook. So yarn over, insert into the gap, Yarn over and pull through and pull up on your work. Let me fix my focus here. Sorry, just a minute. Okay, there we go. Yarn over, insert, yarn over, pull up, yarn over, insert, yarn over, pull through and up. Complete a puff stitch. Chain 1. Now, it might be a little confusing figuring out where to work next. Instead of trying to track down your work, try going into the puff you just worked into and then across, and that's the next puff you'll need to work into. It'll get a little confusing as you work more of the rows, but that's the trick that I like to do. You always insert into that little gap just before the puff stitch. Chain 1. Find that little gap in the next puff, 2 rows below, down and across, 2 rows. Work a puff stitch, chain 1 in between each puff, and continue working this stitch pattern all the way across your work. Just one more reminder, it's puff stitch, 2 rows below, chain 1 at the end of the puff. Okay, I've reached the end of the row. I just did the last puff here into the row 2 rows below. So I'll chain 1 after that puff and just single crochet in the last stitch. Chain 1 and turn. Now, as I mentioned before, the previous row we just did, those instructions will be the same throughout the rest of the pattern. So for the next row, I'd be working here, 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 all the way across. Now, the only thing that's going to vary from row to row is the number of puffs in each row. You see how this row has 2 puffs on the outside, this one goes to the inside, the next one goes back to the outside. This will continue alternating all the way up your work. So the row instructions are always the same, but just keep in mind that you'll have one row with 1 less puff, and then the next row will have an extra puff. They'll go back and forth. So I'll just work through one little bit with you. We always start with a single crochet and a chain 1. Locate the first puff from 2 rows below. So that's the last row. This is 2 rows below. Puff into the little hole right before. Chain 1. Find the next puff 2 rows below. Find that little gap. And as you work, these gaps might become a little less obvious as you start closing up and getting that stitch pattern a little tighter. But you can always just insert your hook right through. Just make sure, look on the other side. Let me focus my camera. Just make sure you're not sticking your hook through the middle of the puff on the back side. You want to stick it all the way off to the side to get the proper stitch pattern. Finish the puff, chain 1, locate the next puff, and you'll just keep going across your work. You'll keep following these row instructions until your work is just shy of being 5 inches tall or just shy of being a complete square. The last row will be something slightly different to help close up these awkward gaps that we have at the top here. Keep working and I'll meet you back at the end. So my work is just about 5 inches tall now, and now I'll be doing the last row, and you may have noticed the previous row you worked always ends with these little weird gaps. So that's why for the last row we need to do something slightly different to close up those gaps to give our pattern a complete finish. And keep in mind that you may have ended on a different row than I did, meaning your puffs are in a slightly different placement like I was mentioning before, but the instructions will remain the same, so just pay attention to what stitch you have first while I show you this part. So as always, you'll single crochet in the first stitch. Then we're going to be single crocheting into the top of our puff stitches from the previous round. And we'll still be doing our regular puffs into the 2 rows below. So for me, I have a puff stitch here first. Every puff stitch from the row before, we'll be doing a single crochet in the top. So I'm going to go ahead and do mine. Although, depending on what row you ended on, you might have a puff stitch 2 rows below first. So that's what you would do first. But for me, I'm just going to do a single crochet into the top of this puff here. And I'm not going to chain. I'm just going to go right into my next puff 2 rows below like we normally do. Do not chain after the puff. We're just going to go right into a single crochet into the top of the previous row puff. And then do our next puff stitch 2 rows below. And you'll continue doing that all the way across. Once again, we're not going to do any chains in this row. Just puff and single crochet. You'll do that all the way across until you get to the end. Now you'll notice mine, I'm ending with a single crochet because I have a puff at the end here. Yours might be different depending on what row you ended on previously. And end with a single crochet into the last stitch. At the end, you'll just fasten off and weave in your ends as normal. And there you have it. That is the Coco Coaster, which is the second pattern in my Coco series. The other pattern is my Coco Trivet, which you can also find for free on my YouTube channel. But I hope you enjoyed this pattern. I just love this stitch pattern so much, and I can't wait to design more with it. Let me know what else you want to see designed with this stitch pattern. Make sure you subscribe and leave a comment, and I can't wait to see your work. Make sure you tag me on Instagram when you post. Have a great day.